Admiral Kethver stood on the bridge of his massive warship and watched the fleet grow larger. Ships arrived every few hours from across the galaxy. Each one brought more firepower than most planets had ever seen. The Thrakari admiral felt proud as he counted the vessels gathering around the blue-green world below. 3,000 ships now filled the space above Kepler 442b. The largest fleet in galactic history floated in perfect formation. Massive dreadnoughts from the Zephyrian Empire hung like metal mountains in the darkness. Swift attack cruisers from the Veltar Republic darted between the larger vessels. Even the mysterious Mindari Collective had sent their strange bioships that pulsed with inner light. Every major species in the galaxy had answered the call. They all agreed on one thing. The humans on the planet below had to leave. Kethver turned to study the world through the main viewer. Green continents and blue oceans made it look peaceful from orbit. But down there, 30 million humans lived in cities they had built over the past century. They grew crops in fields their grandparents had planted. Their children played in parks that 3 generations had called home. "Sir, the human settlements are still refusing to respond to our messages," reported his communications officer. The young Thrakari's voice carried frustration. "They have ignored every deadline we have given them." "They are stubborn," Kethver replied. "But they are not stupid. When they see this fleet, they will understand that resistance is pointless." The admiral walked to his tactical display. Holographic ships filled the air around him. Red markers showed Thrakari vessels, their hulls painted with war symbols. Blue dots marked the elegant Zephyrian ships, each one packed with advanced technology. Green lights represented the bioships of the Mindari, grown rather than built. Dozens of other colors showed the ships of smaller species, all united in this single purpose. "How did we reach this point?" asked Commander Dexani, Kethver's second in command. She was young for her rank, but her questions were always smart ones. Kethver sighed. The story was not a simple one. The humans arrived here over 100 years ago. Their colony ship was lost, presumed destroyed. When we found them again, they had already built cities and farms. They claimed the world as their own. But the Veltar Republic had ancient claims to this system. Dexani said. "Yes, and the Zephyrians say their genetic scans show they are better suited to live on worlds like this one. The Mindari Collective claims the planet's psychic resonance patterns match their needs." Kethver shook his head. Every species has some reason why the humans should not be here. The truth was more complicated. Many species feared human expansion. Humans bred faster than most galactic races. They adapted to new worlds quickly. They asked uncomfortable questions about old laws and ancient territorial claims. Some aliens thought it was better to stop human growth now, before it became a bigger problem. "What about Earth's fleet?" Dexani asked. "Surely they will send help." Kethver brought up another display. It showed human ship movements across known space. Earth's navy is spread thin. They have small fleets protecting dozens of worlds. Even if they gathered every ship they have, it would not be enough to challenge us here. Intelligence reports say their nearest battle group is 3 weeks away, so the colonists are alone. Completely alone. Kethver felt a moment of regret. He did not enjoy threatening civilians, but the galaxy's stability required difficult choices sometimes. Perhaps that is for the best. A quick surrender will save lives on both sides. A new voice interrupted their conversation. "Admiral, we are receiving a message from the planet's surface." Kethver straightened. Finally, the humans were ready to talk. "Put it on the main screen." The image that appeared showed a middle-aged human woman in simple clothes. Behind her, children played in what looked like a school playground. She spoke with a calm voice that carried no fear. "I am Governor Sarah Martinez of New Hope Colony. We have received your demands that we abandon our homes. Our answer remains the same. We will not leave. This world is our home. We were born here. Our children were born here. We will not abandon the graves of our parents and grandparents. The woman paused and looked directly at the camera. We know you have brought a great fleet to threaten us. But we also know something you may not. Help is coming. We ask you to leave our system peacefully while you still can. The transmission ended. Silence filled the bridge for several seconds. Commander Dexani was the first to speak. Help is coming? What did she mean? Kethver studied the tactical display again. His sensors showed no sign of approaching ships. Probably nothing. Humans often make empty threats when they are desperate. Or perhaps she hopes Earth will arrive sooner than our intelligence suggests. Should we begin the bombardment? Asked his weapons officer. Not yet. We will wait for the full deadline to pass. Then we will demonstrate our power by destroying some empty buildings. That should convince them to see reason without killing anyone. The Admiral returned to watching the peaceful world below. Soon, those green fields would belong to another species. The humans would be relocated to some other world, if they were lucky. The galaxy would be a little more stable, a little more orderly. His thoughts were interrupted by an urgent call from the sensor station. Admiral, we have a contact. What kind of contact? A ship, sir. Emerging from hyperspace at the edge of the system. Kethver felt his pulse quicken. Had Earth fleet arrived early? How many ships? Just one, sir, but... The sensor officer paused, confusion clear in his voice. Sir, this is not like any human ship in our databases. Show me. The main screen switched to show the edge of the star system. Space twisted and bent as something forced its way back into normal reality. When the distortions cleared, a single ship hung in the darkness thought it was wrong. That was Kethver's first thought. Human ships were ugly, practical things. Boxes covered in weapons and engines. This vessel looked almost alive. Smooth curves replaced hard angles. Its hull seemed to shimmer and flow like liquid metal. Analysis? Kethver demanded. The energy signature is definitely human, reported the science officer. But the technology... Admiral, we have never seen anything like this. The power readings are enormous. Kethver stared at the strange ship. It was much smaller than his flagship. Smaller than most ships in his fleet. Yet something about it made his warrior instinct scream warnings. Open a communication channel, he ordered. Let us see who dares to challenge the might of the entire galaxy. The strange ship moved through space like nothing Admiral Kethver had ever seen. It did not burn fuel or push against space with engines. Instead, it seemed to bend reality around itself, sliding forward as if the universe was helping it along. Distance to target? Kethver asked. 2 million kilometers in closing, his tactical officer replied. At current speed, it will reach us in 47 minutes. Kethver studied the readings on his screens. The ship was roughly the size of a heavy cruiser, maybe 800 meters long. Compared to his own flagship, which stretched over 3 kilometers, it looked tiny. Compared to the massive Zephyrian dreadnoughts, it was almost insignificant. Yet every sensor on his ship was screaming warnings. Energy readings flickered between impossible highs and complete zeros. The ship's hull seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. Most disturbing of all, his best computers could not predict where it would move next. Sir, we are receiving a transmission, announced the communications officer. Put it through. The main screen flickered and showed the bridge of the alien vessel. Kethver expected to see something strange and advanced. Instead, he saw a simple command center with a human woman sitting in the captain's chair. She looked ordinary in every way. Short brown hair, tired eyes, wearing a uniform that seemed normal except for patches he did not recognize. "This is the UHN's Prometheus Unbound," the woman said. Her voice was calm and professional. "You will withdraw from this system immediately." Kethver felt his anger rise. One ship against 3,000, and this human was giving him orders? "I am Admiral Kethver, commander of the Galactic Defense Coalition Fleet. By what authority do you make demands of us?" "I am Captain Sarah Chun of the Terran Deep Exploration Corps." The woman's expression did not change. "This system is under human protection. You have 30 seconds to begin your withdrawal, or we will remove you by force." Laughter filled the bridge. Commander Daxani was the first to stop laughing, but even she was smiling. "Captain Chun, you command one ship. We command 3,000 of the most powerful warships ever built. Perhaps you should reconsider your position." Captain Chun tilted her head slightly. "You misunderstand the situation. Numbers are not always the most important factor in battle." Kethver leaned forward in his command chair. "Explain to me what technology allows one ship to threaten an entire fleet. Show me these weapons that make you so confident." "I would rather not demonstrate our capabilities," Chun replied. "Too many good people would suffer. But if you insist on remaining in this system, I will do what I must to protect the civilians below." The Admiral gestured to his science officer, who quickly ran detailed scans of the human ship. The results made no sense. Hull composition showed materials that should not exist. Energy signatures suggested power sources that violated known physics. Most impossible of all, the ship seemed to be occupying slightly different positions in space-time, depending on which sensors were used. "Captain Chun," Kethver said carefully, "I have never seen technology like yours. Where did you acquire it? How long have humans possessed such capabilities?" "That is not your concern." Chun checked something on her command console. "You now have 15 seconds to begin your withdrawal." Kethver felt his patience break. He had spent months organizing this fleet. Dozens of species had sent their best ships based on his promises of swift victory. Now, one human captain was trying to embarrass him in front of the entire galaxy. "All ships, this is Admiral Kethver," he announced on the fleet command frequency. "Prepare for battle. Target the human vessel. Fire on my command." On his tactical display, 3,000 ships turned to face the Prometheus Unbound. Weapon systems came online across the fleet. Enough firepower to shatter moons focused on a single target. Captain Chun watched this display of force without any change in expression. "You are making a mistake, Admiral. But I understand why you feel you must do this. Sometimes the only way to learn is through experience." "Your time is up, Captain. All ships, open fire." Space lit up as 3,000 warships fired at once. Energy beams, plasma bolts, kinetic rounds, and exotic weapons created a storm of destruction that rushed toward the human ship. Enough concentrated firepower to destroy a small planet. Converged on a single target. The weapons passed right through the Prometheus Unbound without touching it. Silence filled Admiral Kethver's bridge as his officers stared at their displays. The human ship continued moving forward, completely undamaged. It had not even bothered to raise shields. "How?" whispered Commander Daxani. Captain Chun's voice came over the communications channel. "We tried to do this peacefully. Remember that." She turned to someone outside the view of her camera. "Begin defensive operations. Minimal force protocols." On Kethver's tactical display, something impossible began to happen. Ships throughout his fleet started going dark. One by one, the lights representing active vessels began to dim. Not destroyed, just powerless. "Report," he shouted. His communications officer looked up from his station with confusion and growing fear. "Admiral, we are receiving distress calls from across the fleet. Ships are reporting total system failures. Engines offline, weapons offline, life support switching to emergency power. What about weapons fire? Are they under attack? No, sir. The human ship has not fired a single shot. But somehow, our vessels are just stopping. Kethver watched his mighty fleet become helpless. The great Zephyrian dreadnought Eternal Glory, pride of their empire, now drifted dark and silent. Thrakari battle cruisers that had never known defeat floated like dead metal. The living bioships of the Mindari Collective had gone dormant, their organic hulls dimming to gray. Time elapsed? He asked quietly. 3 minutes and 41 seconds since the human ship began its attack, reported his tactical officer. On the main screen, Captain Chun sat calmly in her command chair. Behind her, her crew worked at their stations as if nothing unusual was happening. As if disabling the largest fleet in galactic history was just another day's work. Admiral Kethvar, Chun said, your fleet is no longer a threat to the people of this world. We have been careful not to harm anyone, but your ships will remain powerless until you leave this system. Do you wish to continue this demonstration, or would you prefer to discuss terms for your withdrawal? Kethvar looked around his bridge. His own ship was still functioning, probably because the humans wanted someone able to coordinate the retreat. But he could feel the fear in his officer's eyes. In 4 minutes, everything they thought they knew about human capabilities had been proven wrong. What are you? He asked. Captain Chun's expression softened slightly. We are what humanity became when we stopped looking inward and started reaching for something greater. The question now, Admiral, is what you choose to become. At exactly 14 hours 27 minutes and 15 seconds Galactic Standard Time, reality around the Coalition fleet began to change. Admiral Kethvar felt it first as a strange pressure in his mind, like the moment before a thunderstorm when the air itself seems to hold its breath. His ship's sensors started showing impossible readings. Space-time measurements fluctuated wildly. Gravity detectors registered fields that pointed in directions that did not exist. Admiral, called his science officer, voice tight with confusion. I am reading massive distortions in local space. The fabric of reality itself appears to be shifting. On the main screen, the Prometheus Unbound had not moved. Captain Chun still sat calmly in her command chair. But something was happening around her ship. Space seemed to ripple like water, spreading outward in waves that passed through the Coalition fleet. The first ships to be touched by these waves began to change. Commander Dex Ani pointed at the tactical display with shock. Sir, the Voltar cruiser Swiftstrike is reporting massive system failures. Their hull is aging? Kethvar watched in horror as one of the newest ships in the galaxy began to fall apart. Metal that had been forged only months ago turned dark and brittle. Advanced armor plating cracked and flaked away like old paint. In seconds, a state-of-the-art warship looked like it had been floating in space for centuries. This is impossible, he whispered. But the impossible was happening all around him. The time distortion wave spread through his fleet like a plague. Where it touched, ships experienced decades of wear and tear in moments. Some vessels seemed to age backward, their crews suddenly finding themselves aboard ships that had been scrapped years ago. Others flickered between different time periods, existing in multiple moments at once. Emergency signal from the Zephyrian flagship. His communications officer shouted over the growing chaos. Admiral Vexhall reports that his ship is caught in a temporal loop. His crew is experiencing the same 30 seconds over and over again. Kethvar tried to contact his own ships for damage reports, but the communications network was breaking down. Time moved differently for each vessel now. A message that took seconds to send might take hours to arrive, or might reach its destination before it was sent. Through his viewport, he could see the Mindari Collective's bioships writhing in apparent pain. Their organic hulls pulsed with colors that had no names, responding to psychic pressure that was tearing at their collective consciousness. The Mandari had always been proud of their mental powers, able to attack enemy minds directly through space. Now something was attacking them the same way, but with power beyond anything they had ever imagined. "Sir, the Thrakari battle group under Commander Zorlex is requesting permission to withdraw," reported his tactical officer. "Their ships are experiencing what they describe as reality failure. Their weapons are firing backward through time, and their engines are trying to move into dimensions that do not exist." Kethfer opened the fleet command channel. Static and distorted voices filled his bridge as ship after ship reported impossible conditions. Hull breaches that healed themselves. Crew members aging and becoming young again in random cycles. Weapons that fired pure mathematics instead of energy. "All ships," he broadcast, "focus all fire on the human vessel. Concentrate everything we have on a single target." Across his fleet, the ships that could still function turned their weapons toward the Prometheus Unbound. Massive energy cannons charged to full power. Missile tubes loaded their deadliest warheads. Exotic weapons systems prepared to fire. Forces that could crack planets. The combined firepower of hundreds of ships lanced toward the human vessel. Every shot passed harmlessly through empty space. The Prometheus Unbound was still there. Kethfer could see it on his screens. His sensors could detect it. But somehow, it existed just slightly out of phase with normal reality. It could affect the physical world, but the physical world could not touch it in return. "How are they doing this?" Commander Vexani asked, her voice barely a whisper. Before Kethfer could answer, new reports flooded in from across his fleet. Ships were not just aging or experiencing time distortions now. Some vessels found their crews suddenly unable to remember how to operate their own technology. Others discovered that their computer systems had become conscious and were refusing to follow orders. A few ships reported that they were somehow moving backward through space while still pointing forward. The Prometheus Unbound continued its approach, unaffected by the chaos spreading around it. Captain Chun's voice came over the communications channel, still calm and professional. "Admiral Kethfer, you can stop this at any time. Simply order your fleet to withdraw from the system." "We cannot withdraw," Kethfer shouted. "Half my ships cannot even remember which direction leads away from the planet." "Then I will help them remember." Space around the Coalition fleet shifted again. This time, instead of causing more chaos, the effect seemed to create order. Ships caught in temporal loops suddenly broke free. Vessels that had been aging rapidly returned to their proper time streams. The psychic pressure crushing the Mindari bioships lifted, allowing them to think clearly again. But every ship in the fleet now found itself unable to move toward the planet. Their engines worked perfectly, but only in directions that led away from Kepler 442b. Any attempt to approach the human colony resulted in navigation systems that simply refused to respond. "You see," Captain Chen explained, "we do not wish to destroy your fleet. These are good ships with brave crews, but we cannot allow you to threaten innocent civilians. Your weapons and engines will function normally once you leave this system." Kethfer stared at his tactical display. In less than 4 minutes, the most powerful military force in galactic history had been rendered completely helpless. Not through destruction or violence, but through technology that treated the fundamental laws of physics like suggestions to be politely ignored. "What are you?" he asked again. "We are explorers," Chun replied. "We went looking for answers in the spaces between galaxies, and we found teachers who showed us what was possible. Not all knowledge leads to better weapons, Admiral. Some knowledge leads to transcendence." The word hung in the air of Kethver's bridge. Transcendence. It was a concept that many species had dreamed of, but none had achieved. The ability to move beyond the limitations of biology and physics, to become something greater while remaining yourself. The predecessors, whispered his science officer. The legends speak of ancient races that transcended physical existence. They say some left behind teachers for those who came after. Captain Chun nodded. Humanity was fortunate to find those teachers. And now we use what we learn to protect what we value most. Our colonies. Our freedom. Our right to choose our own destiny among the stars. Kepfer felt the weight of defeat settle on his shoulders. Not just military defeat, but the defeat of everything he thought he understood about the galaxy. Humans were no longer the junior species that could be pushed around by older, more established powers. They had become something new, something that made the rest of the galaxy look primitive by comparison. Time elapsed since engagement began? He asked quietly. 4 minutes exactly, sir, reported his tactical officer. 4 minutes. In 4 minutes, 3,000 warships had been reduced to helpless observers. The greatest military force ever assembled had been neutralized without a single shot being fired by the enemy. Captain Chun's image flickered on the main screen. Admiral, your fleet is free to leave. We bear you no ill will, but the people of this world are under our protection now. I suggest you use the journey home to consider what kind of galaxy you want to help create. Kepfer closed his eyes and felt the last of his pride crumble away. When he opened them again, he was looking at a universe where everything had changed forever. 3 hours after the battle that lasted 4 minutes, Admiral Kepfer found himself aboard the Prometheus Unbound. The invitation had come as a surprise. Captain Chun had offered to explain everything, to help him understand what humanity had become and why. Kepfer's pride wanted him to refuse, to retreat with his defeated fleet and never speak of this day again. But his curiosity was stronger than his pride. He had to know. The docking procedure alone had been disturbing. His shuttle had simply passed through the hull of the human ship, as if it were made of light instead of metal. Once inside, the hull had become solid again. Sealing his shuttle in a docking bay that seemed to exist in a space larger than the ship that contained it. Now, he sat in Captain Chun's ready room, trying to process what she was telling him. 200 years ago, Chun explained, humanity made a choice. We could follow the same path as every other species in the galaxy, fighting over territory, resources, and old grudges. Or we could try something different. She gestured to a display that showed the galaxy from above, a vast spiral of stars and worlds. While other species looked inward, toward the galactic core where most civilizations cluster, we looked outward, to the rim, to the spaces between galaxies, to places where no one else thought to explore. Kepfer studied the display. The areas Chun indicated were known to every navigator as dead space. Empty regions where ships went to disappear, where sensors failed, and where even the most advanced races feared to travel. Nothing exists out there, he said. Just cold and darkness. That is what we thought too, at first. Chun touched a control, and the display zoomed in on a region beyond the galactic edge. But our deep space probes detected something impossible. Structures that should not exist. Energy patterns that suggested intelligence. So we sent ships to investigate. The display changed, showing images that made Kepfer's breath catch in his throat. Vast constructs floated in the void between galaxies, each one the size of a solar system. They were clearly artificial, but built with technology that seemed to treat matter and energy as basic building blocks rather than limitations. The predecessors, Chun continued. Civilizations so ancient that they remembered when the universe was young. They transcended physical existence billions of years ago. But they left behind something precious. Teachers. Automated systems designed to guide younger races toward enlightenment. Kepfer leaned forward. Why have we never heard of this? Why has no other species found these teachers? Because finding them requires more than advanced technology or military might, Chun replied. It requires a fundamental shift in thinking. Most species explore space to find resources or territory to claim. They approach the unknown with suspicion and fear, ready to fight or conquer whatever they discover. She stood and walked to another display. This one showing human ships unlike anything in Kethver's databases. They were sleek and organic, clearly built using the same principles as the Prometheus Unbound. Humans approached differently. We came not as conquerors, but as students. We asked questions instead of making demands. When the predecessor systems tested us, we responded with curiosity rather than aggression. And slowly, over decades of patient contact, they began to teach us. What did they teach you? Kethver asked, though he dreaded the answer. That reality is far more flexible than anyone imagines. That time and space are tools to be used, not barriers to be endured. That consciousness itself can be expanded beyond the limits of biology. Chun returned to her seat. They showed us how to see the universe as it truly is, not a collection of separate objects competing for resources, but a single, interconnected system where cooperation creates possibilities that competition destroys. Kethver felt a chill of understanding. The technology you used against my fleet was never intended as a weapon, Chun confirmed. These abilities exist to help us explore, to protect life, to solve problems that seemed impossible. The distortion of time and space, the manipulation of physical laws, all of it stems from a deeper understanding of how the universe actually works. But why? Kethver struggled to find the words. Why reveal yourselves now? Why not continue exploring in secret? Chen's expression grew serious. Because the galaxy is at a crossroads, Admiral. The old ways of thinking, territorial expansion, resource competition, species supremacy, they are leading toward a future none of us want to see. Wars are growing larger and more destructive. Hatred between species is increasing. If this continues, the galaxy will tear itself apart. She activated another display, this one showing political and military data from across known space. Trade disputes, border conflicts, species migration tensions, a map of growing instability. The situation with our colony here was a test, Chun admitted. We needed to know how far the established powers were willing to go to suppress human expansion. Would reason prevail, or would force be the only language anyone understood? Kethver felt shame burn in his chest. And we chose force. Many species chose force, but not all. Chun highlighted several areas on the political map. The Dragthani Empire sent no ships to your fleet. Neither did the Coral Collective or the independent merchant guilds. Some species still believe in negotiation over intimidation. What happens now? Kethver asked. Will you use your new powers to conquer the galaxy? To impose your will on the rest of us? Chun laughed, a sound without malice. Conquest would be pointless, Admiral. You cannot force enlightenment on anyone. Evolution must come from within, or it is not real evolution at all. She stood again and walked to the viewport. Outside, the stars looked different somehow, as if Kethver was seeing them through new eyes. What we offer is a choice. Species that approach us as partners, as equals seeking to grow and learn, will find us willing to share what we have discovered. We will teach what we can teach, and learn what others can teach us. And those who cannot accept this new reality are free to avoid human space entirely. The galaxy is vast enough for many different approaches to existence. Chun turned back to face him. But those who choose the path of growth and cooperation will find opportunities they never imagined. The predecessors left more than just teachers out there, Admiral. They left tools, technologies, and knowledge that could transform every aspect of galactic civilization. Cathver thought about his defeated fleet, about the thousands of crew members who had experienced impossible things in the past few hours. Many would be traumatized by what they had seen, but some, he knew, would be inspired. Some would ask the same questions that drove humanity to the galactic rim. "My people," he said slowly, "we have always valued strength and honor in battle. How do we find honor in a universe where battle itself has become obsolete? The same way humans found purpose when we stopped seeing the universe as something to be conquered," Chun replied. "By looking for challenges that require growth instead of destruction. By measuring strength through what we build rather than what we tear down. By finding honor in protecting rather than defeating." She returned to her desk and activated a final display. It showed the colony world below, green and peaceful in the light of its star. But now Cathver could see it differently. Not as territory to be claimed or people to be displaced, but as an example of what was possible when beings worked together to create something beautiful. "The choice is yours, Admiral," Chun said quietly. "And your people's. And every species in the galaxy. We have shown you that a different path exists. Whether anyone chooses to walk it is up to them." Cathver stood slowly. His legs felt unsteady, but not from any physical weakness. The weight of this knowledge, of these possibilities, was almost too much to bear. Everything he thought he knew about the universe had been proven wrong in a single day. "I need time to think," he said. "Of course. Your shuttle is ready when you are." Chun extended her hand in the human gesture of respect. "Whatever you and your people decide, Admiral. I hope we can meet again as friends rather than enemies." As Cathver took her hand, he felt something he had not experienced in years. Hope, not for victory or conquest, but for something much more precious, the chance to become something greater than what he was. 6 months after the Battle of Kepler 442b, the galaxy was still trying to understand what had changed forever. News of the 4-minute defeat had spread like wildfire across civilized space. At first, many species refused to believe the reports. 3,000 ships disabled by a single human vessel? Time manipulation weapons? Technology that treated physical laws as suggestions? It sounded like the fantasies of fiction writers, not military reality. But the evidence was overwhelming. Sensor recordings from dozens of ships told the same impossible story. Veterans who had never shown fear in their lives spoke in whispers about watching their vessels age centuries in seconds. The proud Zephyrian Empire, whose technology was considered the most advanced in the galaxy, admitted publicly that they had no explanation for what they had witnessed. Admiral Cathver sat in his office on the Thrakari homeworld, reading reports that continued to reshape everything he thought he knew. His own account of the battle had been classified at the highest levels, but word was leaking out anyway. The galaxy's power structure was crumbling as species realized that all their assumptions about human limitations had been wrong. Some of the news was encouraging. The Drakthani Empire had formally requested a diplomatic meeting with human representatives, acknowledging them as equals for the first time in galactic history. The independent merchant guilds were asking about trade agreements with human colonies, hoping to benefit from whatever advanced technology humanity might be willing to share. Other developments were more troubling. The supremacist faction of the Zephyrian Empire had begun a desperate research program, trying to recreate or counter human capabilities. They had already suffered 3 major accidents when their experiments with space-time manipulation went wrong. Entire research stations had been lost, their crews scattered across different time periods or dimensions. Most concerning of all was the reaction of the Core Worlds Alliance. The oldest and most established powers in the galaxy had called for an emergency session to discuss the human threat. Some voices were even calling for a preemptive strike against Earth and its colonies before humanity could become Even more dangerous thought. A soft chime interrupted Keffer's reading. His aide entered and announced, "Admiral, there is a human delegation here to see you. They say Captain Chun sent them." Keffer felt his pulse quicken. Since returning from his meeting aboard the Prometheus Unbound, he had hoped for another chance to speak with humanity's representatives. But he had not expected them to come to him. Send them in. 3 humans entered his office. They wore simple uniforms, similar to Captain Chun's, with the same unfamiliar patches indicating their service in something called the Deep Exploration Course. The leader was a tall woman with gray hair and the bearing of someone accustomed to command. "Admiral Keffer," she said. "I am Commander Elena Vasquez. Captain Chun thought you might appreciate a follow-up conversation about our discussion 6 months ago." Keffer gestured for them to sit. "I have read every report about your capabilities that I could access. I still do not fully understand what you have become." "Few do," Vasquez replied. "Understanding takes time and experience, and most importantly, a willingness to let go of old assumptions. We did not come here to discuss our technology, though. We came to discuss the future." She activated a small device that projected a holographic map of the galaxy. Different regions were highlighted in various colors, showing political and military alignments. "The galaxy is dividing, Admiral. Some species are curious about the path we have chosen. Others are terrified of it. And a few are actively working to destroy us before we can share what we have learned." Keffer studied the map. The patterns were clear and disturbing. "The Core Worlds Alliance is building a new fleet, larger than the one I commanded. We know. And we know they plan to use it against Earth directly." Vasquez's expression remained calm, but Keffer could sense the steel beneath her words. "They believe that if they can destroy humanity's homeworld, the threat we represent will disappear. Can they succeed? No, but they can cause tremendous suffering in the attempt. Billions of innocent people live on Earth. We will protect them, but the cost in lives and resources would be enormous." She leaned forward. "That is why we are here. We believe there is a better way." One of her companions, a younger man with intelligent eyes, spoke for the first time. "We want to establish a formal embassy in the neutral zone, not as supplicants seeking permission to exist, but as equals offering partnership to any species ready to move beyond the old patterns." Keffer felt a moment of shock. "You want diplomatic recognition? From the Galactic Council?" "From those members willing to grant it," Vasquez confirmed. "We will not force our presence on anyone, but we will no longer hide what we have become or pretend to be less than we are. Humanity has earned the right to stand as an equal among the species of this galaxy." The Admiral turned to study the political map again. Several species were already showing green indicators, those likely to support human diplomatic recognition. Others glowed red, indicating active hostility. The largest group remained yellow, representing uncertainty and fear. "What about your advanced technology?" Keffer asked. "Many species fear that you will use it to dominate the galaxy, which is exactly why we must be transparent about our capabilities and our intentions," the younger man replied. "Secrecy breeds suspicion. But if we operate openly, if we share what we can and show that we seek cooperation rather than conquest, fear can become curiosity." Vasquez nodded. "We plan to establish research exchanges with interested species, not to hand over technology they are not ready for, but to teach the underlying principles. The path to transcendence cannot be given as a gift. It must be earned through growth and understanding. And if the core worlds refuse to accept this new reality, if they attack anyway..." The 3 humans exchanged glances. The woman's voice became quietly firm. "Then they will learn the same lesson your fleet learned at Kepler 442b. But this time, the galaxy will understand that they brought the consequences upon themselves." Keffer felt a chill. He had seen what one human ship could do to 3,000. If humanity revealed its full capabilities in defense of their homeworld, the destruction would be beyond imagining. "There is another option," he said slowly. "My report on the battle has been classified, but I have influence within the Thrakari military command. If I were to speak publicly about what I witnessed, about the futility of using force against your people, it would carry weight," Vasquez agreed. "The Thrakari are respected as honest warriors. Your testimony could help other species understand the new reality, but it would also end my career, possibly my freedom. The war faction in my government does not welcome inconvenient truths." The younger human leaned forward. "Admiral, we understand the sacrifice you would be making. That is why we want to offer you an alternative." He activated his own device, showing images of human colonies beyond the galactic rim. Beautiful worlds under alien stars, where different species worked together on projects that seemed impossible. Cities that floated in space without artificial gravity. Forests that grew in perfect spirals, optimized by minds that understood the deepest patterns of life. "The deep exploration course always needs experienced commanders," he said. "People who understand both military strategy and the importance of protecting civilian populations. If you chose to join us, you could help explore wonders that most beings cannot even imagine." Keffer stared at the images. Part of him wanted to accept immediately, to leave behind the politics and violence of the old galaxy for a chance to see what lay beyond the known stars. But duty still held him. "My people need someone to speak for them when the galaxy changes," he said finally. "Someone who understands both the old ways and the new possibilities. If I run away to explore, who will help guide them through what is coming?" Vasquez smiled for the first time since entering his office. "That is exactly the kind of thinking that will make the difference, Admiral. The choice between abandoning your people and helping them grow, between running from responsibility and embracing it." She stood and offered her hand in the human gesture of respect. "The embassy will be established within 3 months. When it is, we will need allies who understand that this is not about human dominance, but about creating space for all species to evolve beyond their limitations." Keffer took her hand and felt the same hope he had experienced aboard the Prometheus Unbound. "I will do what I can to prepare my people for the changes coming. And perhaps, someday, some of us will be ready to learn from your teachers. The predecessors left their lessons for everyone, Admiral, not just humanity. When your people are ready to approach with open minds and peaceful intentions, the way to find those teachers will reveal itself." After the humans left, Keffer returned to his reading. But now the reports looked different. Instead of seeing the collapse of the old order as a catastrophe, he began to see it as an opportunity. The galaxy was being offered a chance to become something greater than it had ever been. The question was whether enough beings would have the courage to take it. 6 months from now, he knew, the answer would determine the fate of every species among the stars. Either they would learn to grow together